Hi, it's Rob from the Bush and Boltgun. Today I'm going to be doing another tutorial on how to paint one of the effects for the Nighthaunt. So the first thing we're going to use is Citadel Apothecary White Contrast. I'm going to start using this on the top of the ethereal parts of his body. So you can put this on reasonably thick. You want to get it so it pools in the recesses a bit. One of the reasons you want it to pool a bit more than you usually would is because you're going to be using the Nighthaunt Gloom and kind of blending that together while they're both still wet and they're both still pooled. This will just help mix them together and get you a slightly smoother blend from one colour to the other. Now the good thing about these contrasts as well is that they, once you put them on, they go into the recesses. It leaves the highlights, or the areas that you're going to highlight, quite visible, because it kind of runs off the raised areas and the crests of all those creases within the ethereal parts itself. So once you've got that pooled in there, we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Nighthaunt Gloom. That's one of the technical paints, and you're going to put this on in a similar way that you put on the Apothecary White. Mainly putting this on the bottom here, so you're getting quite a lot of this paint on. And once you've got it on there, you want to be gently mixing it with the Apothecary White there. So you want to be dragging little bits of Apothecary White down and little bits of the Nighthaunt Gloom up, just so you get that nice mix there. And if you get it a bit too dark at any point, you can just use a little bit more Apothecary White to mix that in. If you get it too light, you can use a little bit of Nighthaunt Gloom just to darken that up again. So whichever way it goes, you've still got that pool of the grey, and you've got that pool of the kind of blue-grey, the Nighthaunt Gloom. And you can just gently mix those pools together to give them the darkness that you want within those recesses. So if you start doing this and you get it wrong, you're not happy with the result, you can always just paint over that part with white again. And even if it doesn't completely cover it, when you add those shades back onto the fresh coat of white, you won't be able to see what was beneath it anyway, so that wouldn't be a problem. So once you've got those areas blended together, you're going to use the Nighthaunt Gloom just to do the bottom half of the ethereal part, so that they're that dark blue-grey all the way to the tips of those trailing bits. Now you can do this a whole lot more smoothly if you wanted to. Take a lot more time with it and you'll be able to get those blends really smooth. I always do these for the tabletop because there's that many figures left to paint at all times that I'd rather have them all done decently than take weeks on one and still have the rest completely paint free. So keep applying that Nighthaunt Gloom to the ends of those ethereal parts on the inside and the outside, and then blend them together with the Apothecary White into all those recesses. As it is here, I'm using the Nighthaunt Gloom, and I'll give the brush a quick clean, add the Apothecary White and blend them together, give the brush a quick clean, use a bit of Nighthaunt Gloom, quick clean, and it's just the process of adding one then the other, then one then the other, so you don't get any of it drying out in one specific colour. You can always got those wet areas where you can blend that together. So you can see this coming together quite nicely now. It's one of the many effects that you can use on a Nighthaunt, and it's not too tricky to get it up to a reasonable standard where you can be quite happy with it when you're looking at it on the tabletop. So here I'm working on it around the sleeves where there's a few deeper creases, and just edging a little tiny bit of that Nighthaunt Gloom into those creases. Obviously, as you're going around, if you spot anywhere it's too dark, add a little bit more Apothecary White. If it's too light, add a little bit of Nighthaunt Gloom. So with that all dry now, we're going to use some Citadel Ulthuan Grey. We're just going to go over those raised areas where it's already kind of naturally highlighted by the contrast paint. We're mainly going to be using this on the top parts of it. Where it gets down into the Nighthaunt Gloom, we're going to be painting that in a different way. So all these raised areas here where you can see the creases highlighted, we're going to be doing that with the Ulthuan Grey, and then using something else where we go down to the bottom parts. So this is pretty much going down to the normal way that we'd highlight stuff. With this being maybe considered like the first highlight that you'd be putting onto it after you've reapplied the base coat. So you want to be highlighting the actual ridge itself and a little way down each side of it, and just kind of gently feathering that in so it almost blends in with the Apothecary White and also the Nighthaunt Gloom where it reaches that area, because then we're going to be putting one final highlight on the top of this, which will be on the very, very crest of each ridge. So you do want to try and keep these Ulthuan Grey down the ridge and a little bit either side. And this is just to give that kind of really bright glow on top of the kind of shifting colours of the ethereal part, where we've used the Gloom and the Apothecary White. So just keeping going, highlighting all of these ridges, all the areas that we want to have that little bit of a brighter glow to it. If you watched the previous video with the spirit skulls just above here, if you watched that previous video from last time, then it's pretty much the same kind of style that we did on that to do the highlights, using the Ulthuan Grey and then using the white. We're doing this on the top of the ethereal part of the main body. Now we're going to be using slightly different colours on the bottom half. That's how he's looking at the moment. We're now going to use a little bit of Vallejo White. We're just going to add one final highlight to all these parts. So as you can see here, we're highlighting all the bits that we put the Ulthuan Grey on. But we're doing a thinner highlight here, so you've still got that Ulthuan Grey showing on either side of it. And trying to keep it mainly to the edges and the tips of those ridges, just that final extreme highlight. And all that does is, while the Ulthuan Grey adds that lighter element to it, this gives it that kind of bright shine at the very top of all those creases, just to make them really, really stand out. You can see the difference there between the front ones that we've worked on and the back ones that we haven't. We'll just speed this up and move along to the next part. If you've seen any Nighthaunts with different kinds of ethereal parts, or there's a little technique that you're not really sure how to do, sing out below. I'll see what I can do and see if I can replicate it. Now they can look quite tricky to do, but there's usually a fairly simple-ish way of doing it. As I say, I do all mine for the tabletop, so like this guy, you could spend a lot more time on these parts and get them looking really, really spot on, really smooth blends. But if there's any particular styles of it, like going from black to blue or black to white or anything like that, just sing out below. Give us an example of it if there's one on the workshop website or something like that, and I'll see what I can do. So with the white completed, we're now going to work on the bottom of the ethereal part, and we're going to be using the Citadel Nihilakh Oxide. I'm going to be using this like we did the Ulthuan Grey. We're just going to start highlighting all the ridges. As well as bringing out the ridges and making them stand out a little bit more. The Nihilakh Oxide is kind of a bit of an eerie blue glow to it when you put it on. So once you've done this layer, if it doesn't quite look like it's bright enough, just go over it with another layer of Nihilakh Oxide, and that'll make it really stand out. So whereas you're looking at the wood and the robes and the axe and stuff like that, and you're looking and thinking about the light coming from the top, with these ethereal parts you don't really need to worry about where the light's coming from the top, as long as you're highlighting those ridges and making them stand out, because the light is sort of like, I don't know, I suppose coming from within them or looking a bit more spooky, so you don't really need to worry about the light coming from the top when you're doing these ones. So you can see there with the second layer of Nihilakh Oxide going over that little vertical part there, it's a lot brighter than the rest. And this is what we're going to be doing and carry on across the whole model. So I don't think I show the whole model painting this because it does take some time, because the Nihilakh Oxide is a very, very thin one. But if you just keep doing this around the whole model, by the end of it you'll have that really nice creepy blue glow. There is another one that I'll be doing at some point in the future as well, using Araman blue to do these kind of glowing areas, and that gives you that more bright turquoisey kind of look. That'll be another video for the Nighthaunt techniques. Once you've finished this and the Nihilakh Oxide has dried, you've got one more layer to go, and then we should be done on this bottom part. So next we're going to be using Nihilakh Oxide. You want to put a little bit of this on your wet palette, and then add a tiny spot of white just to lighten that up. Now with this we're just going to do some of the edges on it, and also highlight the raised parts that we've just been using the Nihilakh Oxide on. Now because the Nihilakh Oxide is very thin, you don't really need too much white to lighten that up. So a little tiny spot of that, you'll see it lighten as soon as you start mixing it. Just get that to a nice lighter shade than the normal Nihilakh Oxide, and you'll have a decent one to highlight it with. You can see it really does make a difference and does make those little sections stand out. That's what we want, not all over it, just on those highlighted areas and the raised areas. And once you finish this, these ethereal parts are completely finished. So this is the finished miniature. You can see the finished ethereal parts there. I'm really happy with how they turned out. If there's anything you're not sure on or wasn't very clear on, just sing out in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to some of our other social media, linked below. Thanks very much. If you like the channel and enjoy the content, and you'd like to support us, please head to our Ko-fi page below where you can buy us a brew. Thanks very much.